We live in a modern world where we understand how the human body works. We know that light from the sun bounces off objects, enters the pupil of our eye, and is translated by our brain into images. But what if you lived in a time when this basic fact of physics was entirely unknown? Welcome to the ancient world of the 1st century, a world governed not by modern biology, but by ancient philosophy, superstition, and a completely different understanding of the universe. In this world, a specific miracle occurred that didn't just heal a man's body. It shattered the entire scientific consensus of the era. It terrified the religious and intellectual authorities of the day. And it proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the man performing it was not bound by the laws of nature. Today, we are going to look at the healing of the man born blind in John chapter 9. And we are going to expose how this miracle was actually a terrifying biological impossibility that threatened the very fabric of the cosmic order. To truly understand the weight of this miracle, we have to understand how the greatest minds of the ancient world thought the eye actually worked. Philosophers like Plato and Empedocles promoted a concept known as the Extramission theory. They believed that sight did not come from the outside world going into the eye. Instead, they believed that a literal, divine fire burned inside the human skull. According to this widely accepted scientific consensus, your eyes acted like lanterns. They emitted invisible physical beams of light and inner fire that shot out of your pupils to physically touch the objects around you. Because of this deeply held belief, ancient society viewed a person born blind very differently than we do today. To them, a man born blind wasn't just someone with a broken cornea or a damaged optic nerve. He was someone who completely lacked the fundamental fire of life. He didn't have the divine spark required to interact with reality. It wasn't considered an illness. It was considered an absolute biological dead end. You cannot fan a flame that was never lit. You cannot ignite a fire that never existed in the first place. But the tragedy for this man didn't stop at ancient biology. It bled into their theology. In the 1st century, a severe congenital defect like being born completely blind was universally viewed as a divine curse. When Jesus and his disciples walked past this blind beggar in Jerusalem, the disciples immediately asked a question that perfectly captures the mindset of the era. Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Imagine living your entire life as this man. Society tells you that scientifically, you are lacking the fundamental fire of humanity. Religion tells you that spiritually you or your parents are so wicked that God cursed you before you even took your first breath. You are an outcast. A biological failure. A walking punishment. But Jesus completely dismantles their worldview in a single sentence. He answers, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." What Jesus does next is one of the most profound, deeply symbolic acts in the entire Bible. He doesn't just speak a word to heal the man, he takes action. Jesus spits on the ground, makes mud with the saliva, and spreads the mud on the blind man's eyes. To the casual observer, this might seem bizarre or even unsanitary. But to an ancient Jewish audience, this was a massive, earth-shattering statement. Go back to the very beginning. The book of Genesis. How did God create the first human? He formed man from the dust of the ground, the mud of the earth, and breathed life into him. By mixing the dust of the earth with the water from his own mouth, Jesus was not performing a medical procedure. He was performing an act of original creation. He was recreating the man's missing eyes from the very dust of the earth, acting in his authority as the creator of the universe. Jesus then tells the man, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam." The man went, washed, and for the first time in his entire life, the fire was lit. He came home seeing. The reaction of the community is incredibly telling. They weren't just happy for him. They were deeply disturbed. They brought him to the Pharisees, the religious authorities, because what had just happened was impossible. The authorities interrogate him repeatedly. They refuse to believe he was actually born blind. They bring in his parents to verify his identity. Why were they so terrified? 2. Because if this man was truly born blind, and Jesus truly healed him, it meant that Jesus possessed a power that terrified them. It meant Jesus could rewrite the laws of physics. It meant Jesus wasn't just a rabbi or a prophet. He was the author of nature itself, stepping into his creation and bending it to his will. The authorities were desperate to find a logical explanation, a loophole, or a reason to discredit the miracle. But the formerly blind man, who didn't understand the complex theology or the ancient science, simply stood before the most powerful men in his nation and delivered one of the greatest lines in history. Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. So, what does this ancient scientific paradigm shift mean for you and me today? We may not believe in the extramission theory of sight anymore, but we all have our own versions of biological dead ends. Maybe you are looking at your life right now, your finances, your marriage, or your mental health. And the science of your situation tells you it is impossible. The experts, the logic, and the consensus of the world might be telling you that your dream is a dead end, that the fire can never be lit, that the damage is too severe, or that you were simply born with the wrong cards in life. But the story of the man born blind reminds us of a powerful, cosmic truth. The world does not have the final say over your life. The Creator does. When the world says your situation is mathematically, logically, or scientifically impossible, remember who wrote the laws of nature. The Creator is never bound by the limitations of his creation. He can take the dust of your broken life, the very mud of your failures, and use it to create something entirely new. He is in the business of doing what the world calls impossible. All he asks is that you do what the blind man did. Obey his voice. Wash in the water. And open your eyes to the miracle he is working in your life right now. If this deep dive into biblical history brought you peace and perspective today, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who needs a miracle. Thank you for watching, and remember, the Creator is with you.